guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have another of these brand new 2024 Schleich releases, and this is the final release at this point in time that they've unveiled. Sometimes they give us like mid-year releases that almost go unannounced, which are usually like play sets and stuff like that, but this time we've got ourselves a Stegosaurus, and this one looks pretty darn cool actually. I would say it's probably one of the best figures, if not the best figure from them for this year when it comes to the general appearance and the fact that it doesn't look super goofy. You know, it has some nice looking skin texture, a nice looking appearance to it overall, and a pretty nice looking paint scheme. I'm always a big fan of greens on Stegosaurus, especially with red plates, and although this one doesn't have, you know, super bright red plates, it's got like a darker kind of reddish brown look to the plates. But there is actually one other release as well, which is the Brachiosaurus, but the Brachiosaurus is just a straight up repaint. But again, the figure does look really quite nice, so as always, let's jump straight to a closer look at it right now. So, starting up here at the head sculpt of the Stegosaurus, you can see the head sculpt looks okay. We've got some nice greenish tones. You can see the scale detail also looks pretty nice. Quite a bit of variation to the scale detail. And of course, there is a dark wash present on the figure, which amplifies the appearance of the skin texture quite nicely. We can also see a beak sculpted out and painted with a grayish tone. The mouth has been elaborated a bit there with a darker tone as well. Just like with the Amargasaurus, though, you can kind of see like that weird seam running up and over through the top of the head, which I'm not a big fan of, but it's not the end of the world, I guess. You can see the eyes are painted with a really nice black tone, sporting a fantastic gloss coat, honestly, making it look extremely lifelike. The nostrils are sculpted out as well, and you can see those are also highlighted with that darker tone. As you move back here into the neck, you can see some creasing as the Stegosaurus has its head turned toward its left, so it would be creasing the skin there in the neck. You can also see again the very nice greenish tones, and what's interesting is the original prototype images that were shown to us of this figure actually were sporting a yellowish tone, so it's nice to see that they went with the green instead. As you continue to move back into the body, you can kind of make out the shoulder blade right there. You've got a pretty nice muscular looking front leg here. Some areas of the skin texture looks a little strange, like as you move down through the course of the leg right here, there's like an awful lot of just kind of like creasing going on, like just lines sculpted into the figure. Not a huge fan of that, but it doesn't look terrible. You can see some wrinkling there and creasing in the wrist of the Stegosaurus. As you move up here into the stomach region, you can see the skin kind of bunching up in the stomach there between the front and rear leg, kind of with the movement of the dinosaur walking along, kind of scrunching that skin up right there. Again, the skin texture looks really quite nice. As you move through the course of the figure, you have quite a bit of variation of the scale detail, but as you move back here into the stomach and as you lead along into the hip region, you can see that that scale detail gets pretty big, so it does have a fairly impressive size and look to it. As you move up here into the top, you can see that that kind of reddish tone runs along the top of the dinosaur, not just on the plates, but actually the top of the back of the dinosaur as well. And you can see the plates do look quite nice when it comes to the sculpting aspect. They start out with kind of a lighter tone and transition to a darker variation of like a red as you lead out toward the tip of the plates. And that looks really cool. I do like the, you know, transition there, the variation of color. You can also see that the fine detail of the plates looks excellent. There is a lot going on when it comes to the fine detailing of the plates of the Stegosaurus, and it's also highlighted with the darker wash like we see through a large portion of the figure, which I also really quite like. Again, you can see how the skin is kind of bunching up right there in front of the thigh as that leg is taking a step forward. It's kind of pushing into the stomach, scrunching that skin. This rear leg also looks really quite nice when it comes to the muscle definition, as well as the skin stretching off of the tail right there. Again, as the dinosaur takes a step forward, you've got the kneecap right there. You can also see a calf muscle as well as the foot sculpt looking quite nice. You've got the nails painted with a grayish tone, fairly, not really a light gray, but it's not really a dark gray either. It's kind of like a somewhere in between kind of a gray. And then you lead out here into the tail, and you can see that the scale detail becomes a lot smaller. Still not small, but smaller than what you see along the course of the body as you lead out here into the tail. You can also see the plates, of course, looking really quite nice, but they don't really differ too much. I do like, though, like on this one, you can even see like a little chip taken out of the top of it. Same deal here, and that's not damage that occurred in transit. That's actually the way that the figure is sculpted. So I think that is a really nice dose of realism for something like this. So Schleich actually did a pretty darn good job on this Stegosaurus, and you can see as you lead out here, the Thagomizers start out with the same greenish tone, but also transition to kind of like a reddish tone as you lead out toward the tips, and again, the dark wash is present there. You do have a lighter tone running along the underside of the Stegosaurus, a light gray. As you move along here, you can see that also looks pretty good. You can also take notice of the fact that our Stegosaurus is a little bit beefy, honestly. Definitely sporting somewhat of a kind of chunky look to it, I would say, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. And then you can really see it, I think, over here. You can just see like that beefiness to the Stegosaurus. But the opposing side does have the Stegosaurus kind of facing away from us, so the neck is kind of turning in the opposite direction. You can also see how the skin is stretching a lot more on this side compared to the other side because the dinosaur's legs are so far apart as it's taking a step. You can really see the skin stretching off of the stomach region. But again, the sculpting and detailing actually looks quite nice for this figure. I think the only area that kind of looks a little strange is right here as we lead back from the stomach into the thigh. Like, it just kind of is all jumbled, which is weird. Like, I don't know, it just kind of continues to sort of give it that chunky look, but I feel like there should have been like at least somewhat of a difference between the stomach to the thigh here. It's almost like a straight line into that area, but it's not that bad. You can also see there's actually a little variation to the greens because on top of the dark green, we do also have some lighter greens that you'll see poking up here and there as you move through the majority of the figure. And then again, we lead out into the tail. So definitely a really nice Stegosaurus, actually. I'm very impressed in a year where we've had quite a few less than stellar Schleich releases. I am pleased to see that the very last one that I take a look at would be a really quite nice looking figure. As far as a size goes, it's actually very similar in size to the older Stegosaurus that they had released, and unfortunately, I have no idea where mine is. I've actually been looking for it for months at this point because I love that figure, and I'm pretty sure that one is now, well, actually, I guess with the release of this one, it would be definitive, but pretty sure that one's retired, so I've been, like, looking for it everywhere for a while now, and I cannot find it. I don't know if I left it over in storage, somehow it just got missed when I brought everything, or at least not everything, but mostly everything over here. I have no idea, but for a length, you are looking at about I would say about 7 3/4 inches or around 19.5 centimeters, maybe closing in on 20 centimeters, but not quite. The curve in the body makes that a little hard to get that exact measurement because the head curves in this direction, but the tail curves away from us. But as far as the height goes, just shy of 4 inches or pretty much 10 centimeters on the dot. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect a Human Being next to our Stegosaurus from Schleich. And you can see that it's not huge, sporting a somewhat larger size compared to a, Attack Pack, Wild Pack, Danger Pack type figure. So fairly similar to that size range, but maybe just a little bit bigger. We've also got the Schleich Diabloceratops because it is a figure I use for comparisons quite often that I wanted to bring in here next to our Stegosaurus, showing you that the Stegosaurus is only a little bit larger as well than that Diabloceratops. We've also got the recently released Bahatasaurus for the 2024 lineup from Schleich as well. Then here from Schleich we have their Kentrosaurus, which you can see is also very similar in size to the Stegosaurus. So if you do have that Kentrosaurus, that will help to give you an idea of the size of the Stego. As well as an old school version of a Schleich Stegosaurus next to the newest version. And then one comparison that I know many people would be interested in seeing, we have the Allosaurus for this year next to the Stegosaurus. And as you can see, they don't size up well next to each other. Obviously, the Allosaurus towers over that Stegosaurus. So in this instance, I'd say that's either a very, very old Allosaurus and maybe it continued to grow as it went on, or it's a fairly young Stegosaurus if you're comparing these two together. We've also got the Mojo Fun Stegosaurus, which if you see these two together, you can very clearly see they are of a very similar size as well as the Bullyland Stegosaurus, which is one of my favorite Stegosaurus figures of all time. But what's convenient about this one is you can see they almost kind of share a similar color scheme, again with the green coloration and red plates. And then for one final comparison, we have the PNSO version of the Stegosaurus next to the Schleich version. Now you can clearly see that the PNSO version far exceeds what we have from Schleich, but obviously, again, they're very similar in size, and although the Schleich one isn't nowhere near the quality of the PNSO version, I still think it's pretty nice. So this brand new 2024 version of the Schleich Stegosaurus is, in my opinion, either their best figure for this year or the second best. I think it's a toss-up between this or the Allosaurus, which one I would say is definitely their best, but I would say this one's absolutely at the top of the list. The sculpt is really quite nicely done. It's not super strange looking. It doesn't have weird skin texture. It doesn't seem overly exaggerated in any way. It's just a really nice, natural looking Stegosaurus. The only thing that's a little iffy about this one, I would say, is the chunkiness and like the way that the stomach kind of leads back into the thigh. But I mean, it could have looked like that for all we know. It may have been like if a Stegosaurus happened to really beef up and eat a lot and got a little bit chunky, it could have had that sort of appearance, I think. So it's not too bad. It's just somewhat awkward looking from certain angles. But overall, I think the skin texture does look really quite nice on it, and they've done a great job of painting the figure. I love the greens with the reddish plates. Again, that's something I've always been very fond of. So it is nice to see it continuing to be a trend when it comes to Stegosaurus, and I think they've done a good job of applying the paint. They actually have a little variation to the greens, and the dark wash actually makes the detail pop quite nicely. I also really quite like the fact that they use the same reddish tone that they have on the plates out there for the Thagomizers. I'm not sure why, but that actually looks really cool when it comes to this figure. And again, the pose is nice as well, as it's just walking along, doesn't have any kind of like a crazy dramatic pose or anything like that. So overall, as I said, this is definitely, in my opinion anyway, one of, if not the best releases for the year from Schleich. So if you are interested in grabbing this, I will include a link in the description to where I purchased mine on Amazon.com. So make sure you check that link, go grab this very nice looking Stegosaurus, and also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.